breath, there's nothing left. Now close my eyes for one last time and say goodbye. Lying naked while the snow falls all around me, drifting closer to the edge, but she won't have me. Wake up and sweat, full of regret. Try to forget these memories lurking beneath, lost in a dream. Unchosen paths, a broken past, forspoken wrath. The pain won't cease, I'll find no peace, no sweet release. Fragile creatures, we are taught to fear the reaper, ever running, we are dead before we meet her. These voices telling me let it go. I try and try, but I can't say no. This endless nightmare has just begun. My heart is dragging me down into oblivion. The endless lies I've cast aside, locked them in ice. Steel is my soul, my blood won't cold. I've gained control. Fearless creatures, we all learn to fight the reaper. Can't defeat her, so instead I'll have to be her. These voices screaming to let go. This time I'm screaming back, no, no, no. Don't say no. My mind's made up. Yeah, my fear is gone. Open my eyes now. Here I come for the last time. Say goodbye for the last time. Say goodbye for the last time. These voices scream to let go. This time I'm screaming back, no, no, no. Don't say no. My mind's made up. Yeah, my fear is gone. Open my eyes now. Here I come. Oblivion. Oh, drifting tender, comrade, heroes ride. Her gallant severed away with the tide. The storm head gathers, comrade, heroes ride. Illusions scattered away with the tide. Why do weathered warriors wander their way where the wanting wonders wait? Hark, the herald's anchors away. Here the happens mine escape. Freedom forgone, sinking abyss, comets crumble, Phoebus fades under cosmic clamor decay. Hides the path untaken. Ancient echoes come right, heroes ride. In deafening silence, we'll away with tide. A wave of hazard come right, heroes ride. All in and windward away with the tide. Stellar stories, starward bestrewn, slipping sidewise, see their snakes. Twixt the leaves you'll find Artemis, missing gods and crossing fates. Freedom surging, shifting ahead, comets dancing in her way. To the cosmic clarions that court along the path not taken. Try to the dead, tread on the ride, heroes ride, ride with the tide. Come ride, heroes ride, so far from home, away with the tide. Come ride, heroes ride, so far from home, away with the tide. Come ride, heroes ride, to my final escape. Come ride, heroes ride, to my final escape.
Child, bastard, and beast, oh Lord, step first to the feast. Come claim if you're able a spot at this table, mild and meek, down on your knees. For hide and seek, it's time that we feed. Your heart is racing, blood is running cold. Your fractured will is whispering, far away, hear me lions, say goodnight. With each part does your sanity die, sucking the life out, letting the dark inside. Say a prayer as the light leaves your eyes, or scream all you like, your lightning can't hear. Scream now, scream, your lightning can't hear you. Scream now, scream now, scream, scream, still suicide, don't choke on your pride. Scream now, scream, yeah, I'm gonna watch you bleed. Dance and flee, how does it feel? You're bound as blade, those scars will not heal, no. Lost in suffering, drowning in your tears. Want someone, somebody tell me. Go from here, the liar. Say goodnight, with each bite does your sanity die. Sucking the life out, letting the dark inside. Say a prayer as the light leaves your eyes, or scream all you like, your lightning can't hear. Scream now, scream, the rose can't hear you. Dressed in rage inside my cage, almighty put him else soon. Still bound to the flame that I bear, buried alive in the coffin of the hope I used to be. I'll scream all I like, 'cause we're all men here. Forever falling into my mind, deeper, the shadow of hope I left far behind. I'm just a stranger, we all strange inside. You can run, but there's nowhere to hide. So scream all you like, no one can hear us. Follow me, come follow me, to my deep wooded hell soon. Still bound to the flame that I've been. No release from this empty waking wonderland. Scream if you like, 'cause we're all men here. Scream all you like, 'cause we're all men here.
the shifting sea, the kiss of the salt sweet breeze, the white of her silken dress stained in red, her memory fading fast, her mother sits, eyes downcast, a torn uniform in hand, farewells unsaid, that once a certainty, lost in grief, a daughter's desperate cries, unheard pleas, forsaken, beaten, tried, on her knees, a prayer passes from her lips into her soul, the goddess whispers. A heartbeat without harmony is moonlight without dark. The heart seek of equilibrium. With balance will your worried heart. So still this broken melody, and there will shoulder thee. One last step, only leaving an empty heart down by the sea. Empty heart down by the sea. Shintamani, 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 Shintamani. Legacy of the lack, a continent in flames, the shores of her homeland stained in red. A memory fading fast, the people's hope, eyes downcast, a shattered faith renewed in goddess grace. We pray. Shintamani, 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 Shintamani. The late once a certainty, lost in grief, a people's desperate cries, unanswered pleas, forsaken, beaten, tried, on their knees, a prayer passes from their lips to their souls, the goddess whispers. A heartbeat without harmony is moonlight without dark. The heart seeketh equilibrium, with balance will your love. How still is holy heart. So still is broken melody, and there will shoulder thee. One last step only, an empty heart down by the sea.
Shrieks knife through the deep, natureless creatures perverted and evil. From foulness rise, a vermin tide, teeth bared, clawing the air. Sing like to sing you, the rats do not fear you. In slaughter's keep, the piper weeps, just wax mark on your back. Here in the valley, your death casts no shadow. Sin is laid, comes from the deep. Lay bare, take clean, wet deep in the bones that feed the menagerie. Burns hot, burns brief, follow
Hello, everyone, and good morning. Welcome to LoreLines episode 131. I hope everyone's had a fantastic week. We are joined today by Shadowmouth and Aeneas. How are you both?
Hello. Here
Good
we are.
morning.
I did it. I managed to turn on all the audio without screwing it
Oh
up.
my god, no scuff.
No scuff today.
I'm so proud of you.
I know, I did it. I hope everyone's had a good week. Second episode of 2025, so very excited to continue talking about the game and the lore of the game. What's everybody been up to this week? Aeneas, I understand you got some powdery white stuff outside.
Yes, and it's snow. I don't know why you phrased it like that. Yeah, we got snow in the state of Georgia for the first time in 10 years. And it actually stuck. So I had like a winter wonderland while I was at work yesterday. I got Aeneas photos back from my cosplay, which was also very fun. I'm thrilled about that. Rough start to the year, but otherwise this week has been pretty good. Things are looking up.
Good. We got the leading edge of that storm right now. It's just dreary and drizzly outside, but it's not cold enough to actually snow, unfortunately. So
Well, you're used to wet in Florida at least.
Yeah,
Now it's just a little colder.
yeah, it's. I want it to freeze because it's happened once, and I would love to see it again, but it got up to like 60 degrees last night. Like,
No, that's not happening.
Nope. So Meowth, how have you been?
Uh,
And there you have it.
Lots-
Sorry.
doing lots of work. This time, preparing, getting sheet music evidence for one of the themes that I'm eventually going to have a script on net because we need that. So,
Absolutely.
so lots of work. I really have to sit down and begin at some point and be like, I have to sit down, start writing, and that can go two ways for the team. We can rock it, or we can become everyone's laughingstock. So,
I mean, I am totally fine with either outcome, to be perfectly honest. Well, today I know we have etymology up there at the top, and we are going to talk about the artifact sets. But I wanted to start off just talking a little bit about Futures Rewritten Ultimate. So, Aeneas, tell us a little bit about what you saw and what your take is on it.
Yeah, so I'm sure at this point everyone has at least seen a clear of the fight, watched the gay ass cutscene multiple times. A couple of things I just wanted to highlight from a lore perspective because I think they were super fun touches to the fight. Starting right in that first phase, we are used to seeing Fatebreaker use 3 different ether aspects: fire, lightning, and light. He only uses fire and lightning in the ultimate, and the reason for that is he is basically summoned before you defeat Shiva, thus releasing light ether back into the first. I thought that was such a nice little continuity touch that they put together there. Michon is still non-binary, by the way. They kept up with using different pronouns for her in different languages. So that was also pleasant. I was worried about that. I was scrambling to get confirmation on day of release. We did some lore breakdowns during the race as well. This is another narrative one where if you do things incorrectly in different phases, you have different fail states. The most primary being the flood of light still happening on the first. So if you fail the ultimate in a specific way, you do bring about a calamity. Congratulations, your wipe has wiped out a shard.
Amazing. I love it. I did turn my volume up, thank you. The lovely ladies are 10 to 20% louder than me. And they're both equal volume-wise.
Well,
thank you.
We found the scuff, guys.
Yes, we found the scuff, and it was me.
We found the scuff.
So
and yeah, go on.
Yeah, keep going. I think it's awesome that they included the flood of light. Is there anything in it kind of like they had in Dragon Song, where if you, for example, in that one, if you rescued Harshavon, it led to a really bad end? So was there anything that like people were wanting or looking for that if they go down that route, it really ends badly, either flood of light or something bad happens?
Well, so the fundamental thing that you were doing during the intermission phase is protecting a little crystalline necklace. You know, the one that is gifted to Green.
Yes.
That's my color line, right? So if you do the intermission phase incorrectly, you're destroying all of the crystals and not just the ones with light ether. You can progress to the next phase. And you can complete the next phase, but you cannot complete the fight because the phase following involves protecting that memory, and if it's already broken, there's nothing there. It's a fail state. Likewise, in that fourth phase, the memory will spawn, but it has a health bar, like it does in Promise.
Right.
And you have to resolve mechanics in a way that does not hit the memory with light rampant beams. Because the more damage the crystal takes, the more likely it is to break. And if you break the memory in that phase before going into the last phase, the flood of light happens. Because Eden's Promise is raised anew. Metron is essentially successful. However, if you protect the memory, then Reen and Gaia are able to wrest some sort of control over the form, and instead of getting Eden's Promise, with Metron in full control, you get Pandora.
Oh.
Which is a whole, can of worms as far as nomenclature goes.
Yeah.
Right? And that is the beautiful boss with the multiple wings. And you basically are fighting the girls as they are desperately trying to expend as much of their dark and light ether at the same time as possible. The same way that you kind of do in the Eden Raid series in order to balance out the etherical aspects.
Right.
While Metron is screaming at you from inside the body, it's please stop this. Because things are not going the way that Metron wanted them to.
That's kind of
which
awesome.
is very cool. And some of the mechanics that they bring out, that haven't been seen previously in these fights, because a lot of this Ultimate, it's not easy, but there weren't any puzzles to solve in the same way, because we understood how all of the debuffs and the mechanics worked. They were just being solved in a new way. It's not where, in Top, you had to put the puzzle pieces together before you could start putting the puzzle together. This one was just a lot of, oh, that's weird. So crystallized time, for example, is a good one. You're basically experiencing time compression again.
Right.
But you're also dodging waves of light emanating from the Freysvelger form.
Okay.
So a lot of little snippets, not the most lore relevant fight, but it tells a good story, and it does give us a little bit of insights and confirmations into things that we've already got kind of down pat in ether physics.
Awesome. I
well,
like that.
not lore relevant. That's between quotes, but
I know, but not as significant as the Omega Protocol was, right? Because that one was huge.
I would say rather than not lore relevant, I would say that instead of revealing anything new about the lore, it just, like you said, reinforces what we already know.
Right. Yeah. That's what I meant by not as lore relevant, as in we didn't get information.
Right.
I would put it as there's a lot of implications from a thematic level, but perhaps as lore, solid, tangible, not so much. But implications and names chosen and themes, that thing is loaded.
Yeah, I mean, we could go into that. There sure is an implication about the merging of souls being called Pandora, right?
Yeah, that especially because it's a Final Fantasy VIII themed raid, and Lunatic Pandora was a big part of that. I know.
Yeah, that was a prison.
Yeah.
On a lunar cycle.
Yeah, and I remember before Dawn Trail came out, when they were teasing the moon, and we are like, oh my god, we're gonna get the lunar cry, especially Ayumi died on that hill, and has not been heard from since. So I'm still kind of waiting for something kind of like the Lunar Cry.
We may get
you could-
something like that. Yes.
You could argue that Final Days also, because it starts with like an incomprehensible sound and creatures beyond demonic comprehension raining from the skies.
Right.
Because they never fully address that Nephafate either. It's like, yeah, so it rained demons from the moon for like 3 days. Let's go take care of the reason that happened. We're not going to talk about how we're dealing with the demons. They're
Right.
here now. Like, Nephafate remake when?
Oh god, not soon enough. I love FF8. I bought a PlayStation for FF8.
I'm finally going to cosplay from it this year. I'm very excited.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm finally cosplaying 7.
Oh?
Yeah.
Which character?
A Shinra soldier.
Okay, yeah, I'm not fucking surprised. Alright. Baited me. Fucking baited me. Never mind. We got so close.
I do want to do Vincent, though.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Those were your 2 options.
Right?
Knowing you as a cosplayer versus me, I'm like, all right, who's the most tragic twink out there?
Right.
This one. This one's mine.
So, anything else on Futures Rewritten Ultimate before we get into talking about the artifact sets?
No, those were all of the things that I think mostly got missed. It is a very narrative-driven fight, though, kind of like Dragon Song. So if you have not had the chance to just watch a clear video of it, go do so. Oh, the completed scene. Yeah, it basically is a stronger version of what we get in the actual game, where you have a giant rainbow crystal and Aether is returned to the land. Imagine that, but everything is already alive again. And also they're holding hands because they're gay. It's wholesome. Yeah.
And yes, Quantum with the helmet.
Gay crystal, somehow even more gay than previously imagined.
I love that they went all in on that instead of just kind of teasing it. That was beautiful.
Oh, it is from Dissidia NT. Yeah, I was just thinking about from the lore perspective what it means.
I mean, yeah, but the whole thing, when it comes to references, they do reference Final Fantasy themes and scenes and bits by scenography and all that, and it's not just that, oh, it's a cool reference. Sometimes it's the whole thing about that we have to think, if they're referencing this, why they're doing that, and what is the meaning back in the original game. As to, well, you know, the whole, I don't really have to explain that.
Right. Yeah, but as our chatter points out, it is a desert that turns into a flower field.
Mm-hmm.
The parallel doesn't go too much further. Sometimes not everything is like that big of a comparison, because FF14 at the end of the day is an amalgamation of all the FF14 titles.
But the point Ellie was trying to make is the desert turning flower field as in Ultima Thule with the Elpis flower.
What?
But yeah.
I did not see that mentioned in chat. I was just talking about what happens in Dissidia. But
Okay.
I don't think a field flowering is going to be the most like all of them are always connected kind of thing. They do ultimately like symbolize the same thing, but that's not because it's just like Ultima Thule. It's because of field flowering is like, yeah, there's life here again, which was ultimately what we were doing during Eden's Promise as well. So we're just getting an extension of that.
I saw it also as a symbolic showing of a symbol of their love blooming. But
oh, yeah. You know what? That's
like,
also important. Instead of being consumed by tragic love of Hana Hockey, I have to remember that sometimes flowers aren't also tragic in the romantic sense.
Yes, unless it's spider lilies, and then no.
Well, there were no spider lilies in this one.
Not this one. I'm thinking Yotsuya, but yeah.
I know. You're always thinking about Yotsuya. I am aware.
Am.
You're tempting me to go into another rabbit hole here, and we're not here for that. So.
No. Well, let's have you go down the rabbit hole that we had scheduled then.
Yes.
With etymology.
Yeah.
All right, so last time we stopped off at Bard, I believe.
We left it at Viper, I think.
We did
Then-
Viper, because I remember we talked about it.
Mhm.
Okay.
So yeah, so
okay, then we clear the melee, and now we're left the range, the casters, and the healers. So, all right. Then, right, artifact sets. We were just a refresher. We were discussing this whole thing because I had been noticing some thematic patterns in the gear set for Dawntrail that right now is the thing that it's interesting to us. I mean, we could do another version of past gear sets etymology and try to connect everything, but let's not go there right now. So, right, for Bard, the weapon is called the Gastrapithus. Is the the guitar bow that I think is one of the
Thank you for
coolest
pronouncing
shit.
that, because I'm looking at that and I'm like gastrophetes, and I know that's wrong.
I mean, it should be gastra. If I were to use more Greek phonetics, I suppose it would be gastraphetes. But well, it means belly releaser. It comes from ancient Greek, or belly bow or belly shooter. It was a handheld crossbow used by the ancient Greeks. Give me a moment.
So that's interesting, because I feel like it reminds me of the phrase, fire in your belly. And I know there was, I don't know specifically where it came from, but I know there was a lot of like ancient belief that, about that actually being something real. And the phrase belly releaser, releasing the fire in your belly, it's just interesting.
I mean, it's the thing. It's actually a bow. One of these classic Final Fantasy weapons, though not sure how classic or in how many games we found this one. I do know that this bow is in Final Fantasy Tactics.
I think it's in 12 as well.
Tactics, well, Evil is.
Right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Let's leave it at Evil is. so yeah.
Yeah, it's
maybe
in
Type
12,
0,
Tactics,
I will have
and
to
Tactics Advanced.
check. I will have to check because I don't know if Trey has this as one of the weapons. I think not, but anyways. But it's interesting. It's belly bow or belly shooter, handheld crossbow. It really does look like a crossbow with a guitar,
Mhm.
So I still think one of the coolest thing, in a weird way, they designed for.
I love that
for this
about Bard,
set.
though, that it's just like, it's a weapon, but it's also an instrument.
I like it when they do that with harps. I'm not a fan of the aesthetic of guitar bow, I'm gonna be honest, but it is very funny to me. It's deeply entertaining.
Yeah, I agree, because I just think about them like playing on their guitar bow and then like whacking someone with it, and then they immediately go back to playing, and just the thought of that is just hilarious to me, and I love it.
Have you all watched the Big Bang Theory sketch of Rash walking into the comic store with a shirt that has a music player on it, and whenever he walks into something, he starts playing the Imperial March from Star Wars, like dramatic entrance, something like that. That's what I imagine Bart's doing with their weapons.
That's kind of amazing, though.
So we move from the Gastrapithus, go into the name of the gear set itself of the cloth. It's Bihu. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that well, but it's one of Assam's most prominent cultural events, celebrating the changing seasons. During harvest season, Assam celebrates its national festival, Bihu. The Sanskrit word signifies to pray for blessings and prosperity. On the festival day, farmers and local people pray to God for a successful harvest on Bihu. So it's basically how do you call it? pastoral? No. It's a harvest festival. Let's leave it
Yeah.
at that.
Right.
And if you don't know where Assam is, it is a part of India.
Of where?
India.
Ah, okay.
Mhm. So yeah, I
makes
mean,
sense.
it's the thing that is really most interesting here is harvest, land, all of this. It's a consistent theme from Dawntrail. The whole thing about the respect and reverence for the land and what the land gives to you. I'm not going to go into the deeper end of that, but yeah, let's leave it at it's a theme. So,
I like it. It's a theme.
right. Machinist. So, machinist tends to be a curious one to decipher. Let's see what we can do. The weapon. Oh, I don't know how to pronounce German, so you'll excuse me. Stallman is the name of the gun, and it's a word of Germanic origin that may be translated as "man of steel."
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah, I can see.
I
It's
don't-
Superman.
So I don't really know exactly how to interpret these thematically. I'm sure there's something. There's a reason, but I personally don't know how exactly to understand it. I mean, unless we want to go into into I mean, Man of Steel. It was basically the meaning, not in Germanic language, but it was the meaning of Stalin. I don't want to go there because I I really very much doubt there's anything communist about this.
So I would say that it feeds into the idea of machinists being a very industrially based class. So
Hmm.
anything that harkens back to, the dawn of industry, industrial revolution type of stuff, it's very reminiscent of that kind of imagery and uh, nomenclature. And so it makes sense to me, not Man of Steel, but like a steel worker back in the
Yeah, a
industrial
better
revolution.
translation would be literally steel man. It is
Mhm.
supposed to invoke more industrial
Right.
steel worker kind of imagery. Also worth noting that Germany is very well known for its quality of engineers,
Mhm.
which is something that just lends itself to Machinist as a class in general.
Right. Right. I mean, progress. That's basically
Mhm.
what machinist is, and it goes into the name of the set, which is Forerider, which is a rider in advance, someone in the vanguard, but also means outrider, scout, and or pioneer. When we understand pioneer, doesn't have to be someone who's go to explore in front, but also someone who takes the vanguard in progress, investigation,
Yeah.
and all that. So
In
yeah,
the
that's
in this context, it does have more of like an industrial engineer pioneer meaning than
Mhm.
anything else, I think.
And I agree with that, but also I think back to the early quests where they're literally developing a new kind of warfare, and they're trying to show that the Ishgardian Knights aren't the only viable option anymore, and saying, hey, we have these tools, we can use them now, and it's better for our people, so more of our people don't die, and they're kind of being pioneers in that sense of industrially developing something to create a new form of warfare.
It's innovation. That
Yeah.
is hopefully. I mean, it's a gun, right? It
Yeah.
is warfare inherently. But for Ishgard, it meant more than just, you know, for warfare. It was also a way to break from the church
Yeah.
for protection, uh, which is,
it is.
also important.
I mean, if we can go into the freedom memes and all that, but it actually what it meant, it was actually what the Machinist Guild meant for Ishgard as one of the, if you recall, anyone who has done the quest line, one of the big problems that the Ishgardian Church didn't want, or the Temple Knights didn't want the Machinists to be around, is that they felt that it threatened their position because the Machinists were offering the the possibility to the common folk to just pick a gun and be able
Yeah.
to defend themselves. And
Exactly.
they didn't want that because because it lessened their power and the reliance the common folk of Ishgard had on them.
Yep.
And also means losing power in terms of influence. That was the whole storyline, and yeah. So in a sense, it does. I mean, we make all the freedom with the eagle and all that jokes, but actually, it's actually that. It's a form of equality that Ishgard wasn't really keen on at first.
It's important to note, Machinists having a gun is second to being a Machinist. The most important thing is not liking the church.
Yeah.
That's how this works.
Facts.
Right. So, Dancer is quite interesting. The weapon is called Soma. In Greek, the word soma evolved to mean the body living in its wholeness. It's also a word biologists use to distinguish the whole living body from its chromosomes alone. Soma exists beyond the 3D plane. It has height, depth, width, and time. A constant state. It's a constant state of change, balancing, and renewal. This task is forever in process and forever incomplete. It's a variable constant and changing in its change. And if you ask me what I think this whole storm of words means, yeah, I would liken it to the Ouroboros, the snake eating its tail,
And
the eternal cycle.
Yeah, and soma is just a root word for somatic, which really is there's a lot of it in medicine, but somatics is actually a scientific field, and it emphasizes internal physical perception experience, and
I think
how
it's-
the body reacts to things.
It's also important to talk about how, like, this is for the dancer job, right? Soma is a core principle of, like, any sort of dance in general, because it's about being grounded with one's body. And in order to, like, kind of really be in tune with yourself, you have to actively think about it until it becomes second nature.
Right.
Something that also is important to the dancer as a job in FF14 and not just a job in real life.
No, absolutely.
I'm
Sorry,
full of puns.
I was thinking job in real life, and I was thinking not dancing jobs. And I was
No,
like,
no, I mean, dancer is a job in real life too.
I know, but I was thinking like how it relates to like an accountant. That's where I went with it.
Okay, I mean, I have to be hyper aware of when my back starts hurting as an accountant.
True,
I know
true.
it's not the same thing, but everyone should be more aware of their bodies and their body's needs, because it's healthier to live life knowing what your body needs.
Very true. Don't slouch.
Which is
Everyone
an interesting
unshrimp.
theme. It's an interesting theme that you just said, Aeneas, when it comes to the plot of Dawn Trail. With the Endless, they don't care about their bodies.
True.
Mm-hmm.
Because that to them isn't existence, which is also fascinating. Because we talk about like existing in your mind, right? Like your brain is fundamentally what's doing all of your thinking, but there is a connection to the physical that's also important. A lot of your thoughts are sensory, and being connected to yourself helps you interpret that better.
Yeah.
And the name of the gear set, it's quite interesting, as it's horus. A horus in Greek, it's the etymology there. It's a stone marker used in ancient Greece to mark the limit of one's propriety. In the sense of, I suppose you put the stone marker as this is my turf, stay the hell away from this. But it's interesting why this is in Dancer. But one way to put it, I think it goes deeper, but let's leave it at the more surface level.
I would say this is my personal bubble. Don't go in it, or you're gonna get Trachterman in the face.
I mean, yeah, that was the purpose of those stone markers, but we also come from the definition of something related to the body. You know, that whole thing about the theme about my body's my temple, you know?
Right.
So I think that's an interest. That's the way I would interpret that, as this is the stone marker that belongs to me. This is my body, is my propriety, so no one else.
But also mark
And
the limits of yourself too, right? We're talking about being aware and in tune with your body. Knowing your body's limits is part of that.
and of course, I'm going to mention Ultima here, but well, vessels and stuff. So
Right.
that's a conversation for another moment.
Answer's less likely to get possessed. Something. New line of thought.
I was basically going to. This is my propriety. Is to stay the hell away from this.
Quantum saying this is only a degree away from a Neon Genesis Evangelion conversation.
This is
All we
Final
need
Fantasy.
is human instrumentality. That's all we need. Be
Right.
in tune with your body and everyone else's.
Right, and here we go into the magic DPS gear sets, which are quite interesting. There's already been many interesting things in this whole thing, but the magic DPS gear sets are quite well. Let's begin with Black Mage. And the weapon, the staff of the Black Mage, is called the Grid Arbor. Maybe I'm likely to pronounce it bad because
It sounded really cool when you
And
said it,
yes.
so let's just go with that.
That is actually written out in a way that is supposed to be pronounced that way if you were not a native Nordic language speaker, because the way you would actually write it in like actual text is not interpretable typically, because it's like a third of the size.
Oh,
I had many times my Swedish friend, whenever I mentioned to her words that taken from Norse mythology, when I try to explain anything regarding 14, and she always has a fit when she hears how the game and we pronounce Midgardsormr, and it's like,
yeah.
Midgardsormr. It's also because Midgardsormr is. This is a complete tangent, but Midgardsormr is not supposed to have the R at the end because it's a title. It is the title given to Jormungandr. So it's funny that they have Midgardsormr because it means it's basically saying the worm that is the worm instead of the worm that encapsulates the world. It's very funny.
That's kind of hilarious.
Yeah, because it's the R at the end denotes it being a name, but Midgardsormr is a title that means the worm that encapsulates the earth. By making it an R at the end, there is a translation that is the worm that is the earth.
Amazing.
it's moon all over again.
It is moon. They moon Midgardsormr. Anyway. So yes, you did pronounce it correctly. Something fun about this is, though, that it is actually a weapon from FF11 that does have connotations associated with a serpent. Details of which we can expand on in a sequel FF11 episode wherein I attempt to break the mouth again.
Are you okay?
I've killed her.
No, I die, but I revive.
You got better?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, don't worry.
Right.
Right.
What's fun though is it's a summoner weapon in FF11, I believe. So it's fun that they made it into a Black Mage weapon in 14. Yeah.
But what weapon does summoner use in 11? Do they use staffs?
So every job uses multiple weapons, and depending on which job you're subclassing, you can have different weapon combinations for different job combinations. So it's kind of whatever it makes sense for the meta of the job on the patch that the weapon is released in.
Okay.
Your weapon, what did you find lying around? Does it give you good
It's interesting nonetheless, but...
It's not traditional in the sense that, like, a bard has a bow, right? In FF11, the bard is a ranger. The bard has daggers, axes, clubs, bows, and guns.
Yeah, tracks. Right. Right.
For
yeah.
some reason,
well,
I just thought back to
it's
gun mage.
Kind
oh,
of.
Heaven's word.
I mean, yeah. I level up machinist back in that era. It was my first DPS that I leveled to level 1 to level 60. Anyways, yeah, it's interesting. Anyways, that considering things, interesting that black mage weapon is actually summoner weapon. No, okay, let's move on to. So in Norse mythology, Gridavor, it was a magic staff carved from an immense piece of amber, shaped into the form of a branch bursting with life. The brilliant sunlight, reflected off of its golden frame, was believed to cleanse the world. And here, that's when when it comes to amber, and considering where we seem to be going, it brings evolution lore to mind because in Evilis, amber is believed to be a substance that holds the power of the sun. So, and it's related to trees, and we know that trees in Final Fantasy XIV context are related to darkness because that's what it manifests as. Darkness represents life. So,
Conversely, this is also related to content in FF11 where a large tree is involved. That is essentially like the rebirth of a region as well. It is a tree that is supposed to harken back to Yggdrasil, which is not what Gridavo technically aligns itself with, but you know how Final Fantasy titles like to
right,
pick and choose things from different cultures and put them together, right?
Yeah.
right.
When you combine them, you can see where they were going with it. If you're carving like a branch from amber, the specific plot line I am referring to involves planting a single little sapling that has already sprouted in order to, in a single burst, rejuvenate an area. It calls to the cleansing of the worlds that they are referring to here, because it's in a good connotation. Not cleanse the world as in wipe it out. It's cleanse the world as in like actual like healing, like Asuna. One big
Oh.
Asuna.
The good cleanse, not the bad one.
Right, yeah. Just wanted to put it out there.
Purify
Well,
with fire.
it's
Context is important.
yeah, I'm not going to go there for this when it comes to speculation. Really, you're tempting me, but no, I
mean,
must
this
say
isn't speculation. This is just straight up like what the word means in this context.
Yes, yes.
I
but-
understand that there are different meanings, but this is not one that should be associated.
Right, right. I mean, when you mentioned the sprout in 11, I immediately thought of the promo image they showed in FanFest for when it was they were advertising Shadowbringers, and they advertised the event
Yeah.
dates, and there's the single sprout on the empty with the ray of light. Maybe it's just what came to mind. I don't know if
No,
it's
I mean
actually
it's good. Yeah, it is a very similar. Let me see if I can grab a screenshot for you so you can see, because I actually did this portion of the story not too long ago.
right.
You can move on, and I'll share it with you.
Right, so that's the most important, the most interesting thing about Black Mage. The rest of the set is called the Archmage set. I mean, it's often considered in fantasy the highest rank among mages. So it's simple, but I mean, it's effective. It's like the greatest mage. So yeah,
That one's self-explanatory.
yeah. Right. So next we have Summoner, and Summoner is quite loaded. First, the weapon is the Grand Grimoire. The Grand Grimoire, let's go for purely historical etymology. The Grand Grimoire, also known as Le Dragon Rouge, or the Red Dragon, is a black magic goetic grimoire. The first book contains instructions for summoning Lucifer, Lucifuge, Rufflecale, for the purpose of forming a deal with the devil. Have you spotted the familiar name there?
A few.
Yes.
So, Rufflecale is one of the bosses in the first of the Ivalice raids. He was originally going to be the Lucavi for the zodiac sign of Sagittarius. They later on scrapped him, and eventually when Final Fantasy XII was released and they made the list of the espers of the Lucavi, it was Shemazai who became the Lucavi for Sagittarius and not Rofocale. But he's there, and they added him as extra content. So he's a Lucavi. Maybe he's a minor Lucavi or something, but he's there. And the connection with Ivalice is particularly interesting, as the Grand Grimoire is featured in 3 Ivalice games. One of them is not Final Fantasy. It's Vagrant Story. The second is Tactics Advance, which is the main core of the plot. The second one is a variant of the Grand Grimoire in Tactics Advance 2, which is actually the Grimoire of the Rift. Long story short, I'm going to give you an explanation as for what the Grand Grimoire is in each one of these games. The Grand Grimoire in Vagrant Story is not so much a grimoire, even though grimoires feature importantly in Vagrant Story, as Ashley learns magic from and skills from them. But the real Grand Grimoire that holds that there's things involving a key to the city of Fliamonde. And it's actually the city itself that contains the power of the dark. That's how they mention it. It's actually magic, but let's call it the dark. The city itself is the Grand Grimoire. So in Tactics Advance, the Grand Grimoire is a relic from the old time, the ancient times of Ivalice, that works pretty much like Oracite. In that the main characters, the children, read the book and open it, and all of these, they are children with very troubled backgrounds, and they wish their lives were different. And in the course of this, by opening the Grand Grimoire, it activates and transforms their town into a dream version of the old Ivalice, and grants all of them everything they wanted. And the whole point of Tactics Advance is the main character Marche trying to wake his friends from this dream. So it works like Oracite. It grants desires, and it's able to reshape an entire town into a different world. It's false, but you know. And in Tactics Advance 2, the Grimoire of the Rift is it has the power to travel back in time, or rather across the rift. You understand, the rift can be many things. So and open gates to different planes of existence, and it gains power through the experience of the wielder. So as long as you're having adventures, it's going to self-record these adventures, and it's going to grow more and more powerful. So the point of that journey is to do things, and eventually you'll be able to go back home, because that's what the power of the Grimoire is. So yeah. So yeah, I recall reading the name of the weapon in the artifact list, and I was like, okay, that's Tactics
loaded.
Advance. That's Tactics Advance first and foremost. So the other two are related, but I would say in order of relevance, I would say Tactics Advance, Vagrant Story, Tactics Advance 2. But yeah, loaded. And but then again, Summoner is kind of like shaping up to be a really important thing, with the whole thing about Arcanima and all that. So it makes sense that this job gets thematic relevance, if it makes sense. So the rest of the set is called Glyphic. And well, I suppose everyone knows what a glyph is, but
No,
I'm
I
going
have no
to-
idea what a glyph is, and you should explain it to me.
Okay, I'm going to read the description just for details. A glyph is a symbol, such as a curved arrow or a road sign, that conveys information non-verbally in computing as well as typography. Typography. The term character refers to a grapheme or a grapheme-like unit of text as found in natural language writing systems, scripts. In typography and computing, the range of graphemes is broader than in a written language in other ways too. A typeface often has to cope with a range of different languages, each of which contribute their own graphemes, and it may also be required to print non-linguistic symbols such as dingbats. The range of glyphs required increases correspondingly. In summary, in typography and computing, a glyph is a graphical unit. And this is a very long way of saying that it's something that is meant to convey information without need of words.
Right.
And it's also a form of encrypting information, which is something. It's a theme that we saw when it came to the data encryption going on in MSQ right now in Dawntrail and all that stuff. But first and foremost, glyphs is how we've been referring for a long time to the brands of the convocation, the ASEAN glyphs, if you want. So having this in Summoner is quite interesting as well.
Yeah, because Summoner is also pretty well known for having something that looks like an ASEAN glyph on its casting as well, but isn't. Summoner is just a very fucked up class.
Sounds like it. I will freely admit I have not spent much time with Summoner. I usually level through Scholar and then forget about Summoner.
So, you've done the job quests though, right?
I have, yeah.
This is one of those things where Summoner, I think, as a job, is only held back in potential for power by the fact that Yumitra straight up is like, no, I will not share the rest of my knowledge. I'm gatekeeping this for everyone's safety.
Yeah.
Because she knows so much, and we never get to talk to her. I was actually talking with a friend about this just yesterday, where it's like, the potential for what summoners can do, just based on what we see them do already, is so strong that there has to be something keeping it back, and I think it's Yumitra just quietly going, no, a summoner can't do that. Smile. Don't worry about it. Smile.
I mean, considering things, but I'm not going to go into there. But I've been replaying the job quest in the New Game Plus because there's a lot in them.
There is.
And I do have to put many things on paper, actually. But the summoner quest, entire summoner quest line, especially the last part, I believe the themes of that last part of the quest line, we're going to be seeing next expansion, so. Yeah. Anyways, I'm going to leave it there. Let's go to Red Mage. I love Red Mage. And I love that it appeals to my Spanish heart.
I do love that it just evokes that. So Red Mage to me in this game is just straight Sean Connery out of Highlander. And he was a Spaniard. So that's just the imagery I got. And I remember when Red Mage was announced, people were like, I want Sean Connery to be the job trainer.
What?
You don't remember that?
I mean, I wasn't playing the game when Red Mage was announced,
Okay.
but I also don't know the reference you're making about Sean Connery.
So, have you ever seen the movie Highlander?
I have. I didn't
Okay.
realize that was him.
Yeah. He's the Spanish guy who wears red. And let me see.
I can look this up. Y'all keep
Yeah.
talking.
Yeah, he's literally a red mage in this. So, like, he's
Right.
very...
Oh, wow. You were not kidding.
No, I'm not.
You
Like-
were not kidding.
No. He is... As soon as I saw red mage in this game, I said, that's Sean Connery from Highlander. Like, Meowth, do you know what I'm talking about?
No. I'm just laughing because yes. Because it's amusing to listen to you guys. That's why. Oh yeah,
I love being
definitely,
confused about pop culture.
Right. He's a red
definitely,
mage.
yeah. So, anyways, red mage. The weapon is colada. Colada is one of the two best-known swords, along with Tithona of El Cid. It is a sword that frightens unworthy opponents if wielded by a brave warrior. Tithona is the one that we know mostly because it was Raban's sword that he later on would pass to Pippin. So we already had one. Now we have the other one.
I think the most important part of this is that if you have a pineapple with this, you get piña colada, and that's very important.
Oh. All right, I'll see myself out.
I can drop puns too.
I mean, I wouldn't be against that. It's one of my favorite flavors, that one. But anyways,
no, I just right. It's too early for this.
Never.
and the gear set is called the Roseblood, which on its own may look simple, but to me, coming from Final Fantasy 13, this immediately flipped my knowledge about Gnosticism and my alarms. So I'm going to read this. So yeah, I hope doesn't really the themes here don't trigger Twitch filters, but in Gnosticism, the rose represents Mary Magdalene and is often associated with female genitalia in modern art as the flower from which humanity blossoms. Roseblood could be an allegory to the womb of Mary Magdalene, the Holy Grail in Gnostic tradition, and the bloodline of Jesus. We're already dealing with a grail, so
Yeah.
um, that combination of words there of Roseblood was like, okay, that's where we're going then.
All right then. So I could see Red Maids being the next poster class for the next expansion. That'd be interesting to see.
I think there is a high chance for that, given where we seem to be going. The only thing I could say against it is that we already have Alice as Red Mage in there, but that hasn't really stopped them.
No, it would be hilarious because then Alize would have a complete identity crisis again.
Why must you torture our daughter like this?
Because it helps her grow.
But
Okay.
but thematically speaking, Red Magic, and after having done the questline again, it does deal with bloodlines and stuff. That questline is loaded, by the way.
Yeah.
And it also, and I compiled many other things about proving my point of why Sharlayan is behind many things, not in a good way. But we will work on that, not right now, but there's a script coming for that. A big one, by the way. So I do think it's actually quite likely Red Mage may be poster job for next expansion, and there may be how should I put this? The whole point of red magic is balancing white and black magic. We're basically delving into Asam. If we're balancing the Warrior of Light and Asam, it makes sense thematically speaking, and red is the color that we associate with the Asians. Anyways, let's not go into. If you get me going, I won't stop. So
I think that's the plot of this podcast.
Yes, but I need to elaborate my arguments before starting spouting quote unquote nonsense, if it makes sense.
Ellie, yes.
So,
Absolutely.
oh, you don't. I think you don't. You're not aware of what we've been compiling about Shirley and Cobb, but
Oh,
the
God.
thing about Shirley and the thing about Shirley and propaganda, we've been making the joke for years now.
Yep.
We found things that may prove that it's actually not a joke and it's not in a good way. So I'm going to leave that to you, leave
Yeah.
that there for now. Right, so let's move on to Pictomancer. Pictomancer has the Angel Brush, and well, I don't think it really needs much explanation, but let's go into, Angels are spiritual beings in some religions who are believed to be messengers of God, usually represented as having a human form with wings. I mean, I suppose I didn't really have to explain that one, but.
The angels. Look at the angels.
But, the thing about Pictomancer is interesting here, though. I was going to already point out Ultima being the High Seraph Angel. I mean, it's there. But also, I think it's a double interesting thing that we have this, if you want, straight up reference in Pictomancer, because as the seat of Ultima, it's about the arts. So it would place a double reference in themes, if it makes sense.
No, I'm with you on this one. Like that's such a fun little nod to all of those things, because the coloration on it as well harkens back to the version of the High Seraph that we get in the 14 raids.
I actually colored mine red because I wanted, because I was like giving a middle
I know,
finger to
I
Ultima.
understand. I understand. See, well, that's the fun part of it too, right? The base coloration is this, and then you could just overwrite it,
Yep.
piss Ultima off a little.
It's like, I didn't want your creepy blue here, Ultima, so fuck you, I'm going to color it red as the people you surely hate. But anyways, and the gear set is called Pictomancer. I literally wrote self-explanatory on the file. I don't really need to explain it. It's like the same with the Viper. And right, and now we go into the healer. That's the final segment. Are you bored yet?
No, not at all.
I am having a good time.
Excellent, because the Sage one is the last one and it's the longest one. I'm actually dreading having to explain the whole thing, but okay. Let's go for White Mage first. Best class ever. Top tier. Right. The staff is called Serenity. Is the state of being calm, peaceful, and untroubled. It's quite.
I'm sorry. I just think about the
It doesn't.
spite
I don't
and
think of White
salt
Mages
of
being
white
that.
mages as they brutally let everybody on their team die because they didn't get the role they wanted, and them just being an absolute serenity and okay with it. That's how I interpreted that.
But I mean, the thing, anyways, with Serenity, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but we're dealing now with themes in Dawntrail that are not just making us go thematically back to Shadowbringers, but also to the concepts of the light, and we know what light means in Final Fantasy XIV. It means stasis, calm, peaceful, untroubled. That's what it means. So having that in that particular wording, and White Mage I would say that White Mage is maybe the most light-oriented job in 14. Much to my chagrin, but that's how it is. It's telling, if you ask me. So, and then the gear set is called piety, and it's the quality of being religious or reverent, or it also means a belief that which is accepted with unthinking conventional reverence. Which is quite interesting, that a belief which is accepted with unthinking conventional reverence. It's basically you're accepting something because of your you're reverent to it, even if it's bullshit. So it's not so much thinking, but rather eating up what it's being served to you.
It's
And
faith to your belief.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. And this is a theme that we're already seeing. We've been seeing for a long time, but it's started to become more evident.
White
so to
magic
speak.
is still
Maybe-
illegal.
Yeah. Also,
with good reasons.
don't meld piety. Simply don't.
Yeah. There's no
I
reason
know.
for it.
I never actually.
Piety has always
I
and
don't-
will
then I-
ever be useless.
And then
It
again, then
is-
again, I don't meld, but
It is useful if you are not confident as a healer, and that is fine. Just be aware that as your skill level grows, the amount of piety that you meld should decrease. They are inversely related.
You know what? I take that back. Piety is good for one thing. It's good for donating to Doma and getting.
Okay.
Okay. So I think that's everything for White Mage. I know, Meow, you and my take on White Magic is just so. It's a twisted interpretation of what the game presents. Valid, but very twisted.
I come from Final Fantasy 13, and our white mage is a ticking time bomb of salt and suffering. So
happy that they used White Magic properly in that game. Like, I'm gonna beat you half to
you're-
death, then heal you so I can do it again.
So I'm not going to judge you about your opinion on white magic when when the white mage and favorite character on Final Fantasy 13 is a murderous
Yeah.
creature. But yeah,
Scholar.
Okay. Scholar. The name of the Scholar's Tome is eclecticism,
Mhm.
and that means the principle or practice of choosing or involving objects, ideas, and beliefs from many different sources. The terms come from the Greek eklektikos, literally choosing best, and that from eklektos, picked out, select.
So yeah, I think that's appropriate for Scholar, just kind of picking from everything. It's like you're a shield healer, but you're also a pet class, but you also do direct heals. What are you? The best of everything. So I think
It's fair.
It's a very eclectic class.
Yeah, but it's interesting anyways. I mean, technically speaking, eclecticism would be. I mean, it's like when people not going to get political here, of course, but when people ask you what are your political ideology, what is your political ideology, and I'm like, I have none. I listen to every side and I pick things from here and there and make my own belief.
Mhm.
That's what I consider the common sense, because then if you go into believing everything one side says, it's like it's not thinking for yourself, you're going into a cult. That's my stance on that.
Right.
But yeah, it's I and it's curious because some people as a whole, my experience, being called eclectic sounds like a bit of pejorative.
Mhm.
And I don't think it is. I think it's actually the most sensible thing to do. You see something that you think it's best, then you pick it. Why are you going to turn down something that is actually good just because someone you don't like is using it? I think it's stupid, but you know, it makes me think of Bosnia, the Bosnia questline,
Mhm.
in which Bysalian, which I believe is easily one of the most, if not the most sensible leaders we've met, gets the independence from the Guardian Empire, but he is like, no, but we're going to keep the Guardian system because it's actually better than what we have. So yeah.
Yeah, they did a lot of things right. Just saying.
So yeah, they actually did. So, and the gear set is called pedagogy. Good. Yeah. Sorry. The method and practice of teaching, especially as an academic subject or theoretical concept. It's basically teaching,
Right.
mentor. That. Yeah.
I mean, scholar, that
Uh,
that fits almost too well, almost too literal for me to actually like enjoy that.
I've never been good at scholar, but I try
Yeah,
sometimes.
it's just different.
If I have to barrier heal, I prefer Sage, to be honest.
Yeah, that's fair.
Right. Okay, let's go into Astrologian. Astrologian is that one class that lore-wise I'm really suspicious of right now, but because of the origins and stuff. But let's not go into that again. Astrologian Metis is the name of the star globe, and Metis is the goddess of wisdom in Greek mythology. She is one of the Titans and is daughter of Oceanus and Tethys. She was the mother of Athena. That final line is what is one of the reasons, considering
That's not suspicious at all.
not at all, but Astrologian relies a lot on the 12 so far. The 12 are usurpers first and foremost, same as Highline is actually. Aside from them being constructs of memory, cognitive constructs, just like the endless are, which I suspect is one of the reasons they wanted us to play Myths of the Realm before Dawntrail, because if we understood what the 12 were, then we could tie them thematically to the endless, because that's what they are. They're cognitive constructs made from memory that are susceptible to dynamis. That's basically what the 12 are. And they have the goal to call themselves gods, but right. And without going into too much deep on that, this is related to the 12. We know what we found in the raids,
Right.
so we also have to formally make that into a video, honestly. But
Yes, we
yeah.
do. That's kind of huge. And I think we
Kind
talked
of,
about it.
kind of.
I have a gift for understatement, but I'm pretty sure we've addressed it in stream.
Yes, but
And we're
what
gonna leave
actually
everyone
reaches
hanging
people.
and wondering because we're not gonna elaborate. Uh,
No, but
yes, please look forward
actually,
to it.
most of our content has the reach in the Between the Lines videos, not in the live stream. So we've mentioned it before. It doesn't mean that it's reached many people.
Yep.
So we and that's another reason for us to keep working more seriously on the Between the Lines videos. Okay, so we have that, and we have the gear set as called ephemerist, and it means it's a person who collects ephemera, which are things that exist or are used or enjoy for only a short time, or collectible items that were originally expected to have only short-term usefulness and popularity. There are many ways I could interpret this. There's a theme in Dawntrail about enjoying the present, and there's also the theme of death being introduced as a positive concept. Coming from Endwalker, this is huge, because in Endwalker what we basically do is us, quote-unquote, representing life, though I don't think we actually represented this as true life, triumphing over the concept of death. It was vaguely represented by Meteon. The thing is that actually Meteon doesn't represent death. It's a form of nihilism, because the thing with her, the End Singer, is actually not that she represented.
It's the meme.
Her goal was not to kill.
Right.
Her goal was to make people not be born.
Right.
It's a big difference. And there's also, you have to bear in mind that life and death are two sides of the same coin. You can't have life triumph over death, because that's not how it works. you can't have life without death, and you can't have death without life. You know, that's the thing. So that's one of the many reasons I am. Endwalker is it's a fallacy. It's a farce. It's about creating a conflict that shouldn't happen. But I'm going to again go into the depths of Endwalker in here, and coming from that concept in which we return to Etheris as the champions of life because we've defeated death, and it's like, right. And now we're presented with a conflict in which, effectively, what the people of preservation are trying to do are they consider themselves champions of life because they're fighting against death. They're basically trying to erase death. But again, what we have is the endless. Who
The easiest way to defeat death is to destroy life.
Yeah. But that's what they're basically doing with the endless.
Right.
Because the endless are not alive. They're not dead. They're basically undead. So, having in which the latest dungeon, having the zombies and the Resident Evil theme and all that, it's thematically fitting because the endless are zombies as well. They're in a state of undeath. It's just that they're not rotting, but it's the same conceptually speaking. It's no real life and it's no real death. But anyways, aside from going into that, an ephemerist, things that exist, collecting ephemera things that exist are used to enjoy for only a short time, kind of reminds me, not necessarily that it means the same. I know that the proper term means you're collecting flowers, for example, even though they wither and die eventually. You pick up the flower, you like to keep it, but it's going to wither and die. So that would be a definition of ephemera for existing, or you get a snowflake or something like that. But it makes me think of, considering Dawntrail goes into modern society with Solution 9 and Neo, Alexandria and all that, makes me think of our way of... I don't want to call it a criticism on consumism, but at the same time, I think it's proper because right now in our culture, we tend to buy things that are not going to last. It's just because we want to have it, and then we grow tired of it, and we throw it away, if it makes sense. And I suspect there's a big theme coming, thematically speaking, about that. But yeah, I don't know if you guys agree with me here.
I agree.
Yeah.
I'm back again, by the
welcome
way.
back.
But it is one of those things where you were talking about over-consumerism, right? In the context of Solution 9. That is true for the way that they want to sustain energy sources for the endless, right? Because it's not renewable, first of all. It is something that will eventually die. Like, there is no escaping it. But it is also speaking to, like, the greater problems with their civilization, because they already have enormous, like, electrical consumption. And it's impossible not to approach that in any sort of art form right now, given its prevalence in our actual lives at the moment. And Final Fantasy games have been doing that basically since their inception, is criticizing that same overconsumption that's leading to the death of the natural world, but also has adverse effects on humanity because it's not self-sustaining. It will always come back to bite you in the ass.
I mean, it's inevitably we will get a hook here from these themes into reference to Final Fantasy VII. I'm not saying we're going to get a 7 expansion, but
I was just about to say that. I was like, Cobb, you're gonna fucking like FF7. We're gonna get you.
I mean, I've played it several times.
That's not the same as liking it.
Yeah, it's true.
I'll get you eventually.
But yeah, this yeah, I think 7 will be a big reference in the coming expansion. Not as the main reference, but themes in there really. We already have them, I suppose, but I mean, yeah, the whole thing about But this is not the episode to talk about this.
Mhm.
Okay, let's go into Sage, which is our final one, and then we maybe can comment on other things. But this is a big one, though, as you can see in the file. So, the Sage weapon is called metanoia, and it's an ancient Greek word meaning changing one's mind. In transactional analysis, metanoia is used to describe the experience of abandoning an old scripted self or false self for a more open one, a process which may be marked by a mixture of intensity, despair, self surrender, and an encounter with the inner void. Jung considered that psychotic episodes in particular could be understood as an existential crisis, which might be the attempt at self reparation. In such instances, metanoia could represent a shift in bounds of the personality away from the persona towards the shadow and the self. The Dutch psychiatrist Jan von Dren wrote extensively about it, tracing its history through the work of Jung and Lane, and eventually considering it a permanent change in Gestalt. I wish Ayumi was here.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. Yeah. Where's the near?
And Final Fantasy 13, don't forget. Ideally, it aimed to support people whilst they broke down and went through spontaneous healing, rather than thwarting such efforts at self-repair by strengthening a person's existing character, defenses, and thereby maintaining the underlying conflict. That's loaded. And I apologize. It was a long segment, but when I was reading and delving into the theme, I was like, I need to write all of this paragraph down because all of these themes. Surely you know what it's making me think of,
Mm-hmm.
right?
No.
No. Okay, the shadow and the self.
It's just where we got Gestalt from
Mhm.
the near verse too, because that's how they chose to interpret it using the same idea.
Oh yeah, and replicate. Yeah.
And in Final Fantasy 13, the Gestalt form is the form that the Eidolons take when they become mounts or vehicles, as to be in complete synchrony with the master. But that's not the point. The point here is, well, Ellie said it. Ellie said it on chat.
Oh yeah, Arden was talking about that a few years ago as well.
We did talk about that, and we believed. So here's the thing: you're going to like this one. Bit of LoreLines, bit of LoreLines lore, if you will.
Mhm.
When we began theory crafting, I think we started LoreLines 5.4 soonish before 5.4, right? And we were theorizing on Endwalker, assuming, of course, it was going to be the end of the arc. It's actually not the end of the arc. It's actually the end of Act 2, of Act 1, and this arc is actually a sequel or Act 2, depending on how you see it. So new story, my ass. So the thing here is, we started theorizing into the death of the Warrior of Light because of the threads that were, they have given us from Shadowbringers. So we were basically reading these threads back then, narrative and thematic threads.
Mhm.
We were like, it sounds like this is going to be this way, and eventually it's going to, lead to this and that. And the death of Warrior of Light, not necessarily as dying
Not a literal
per
one,
se,
but yeah.
but dying as another person was going to happen. As you know, we were introduced to Asem in Shadowbringers. It would make sense in many aspects that Asem is the real identity, or we should embrace, or we should be embracing, rather than the Warrior of Light, which we had the implication in 5.3 that it's actually a farce of martyrdom. It was implied. I suppose that it's not clear cut so far, but That's where I believe we're going, though. And that's the thing. We started picking all of these threads because they were presented in Shadowbringers, and then Endwalker came, and they didn't follow any of them. Any of them. It was confusing to say the least. And
Yeah.
honestly, I think a big element of my personal, I don't know about you guys, but my personal feelings when it came to Endwalker, it was not just disappointment, but rather it was a bit of, I take pride in my work, and it was one of these moments in which I was like, have I been reading this wrong the entire time? And it made me question myself and my work, and I had to take a big break myself to, separate myself from things that, well, I didn't know how to take anymore, unless it was like, and then they announced Stone Trail. There were themes that I was interested in, and I was like, okay, mainly because you showed me Solution 9 when they announced it,
Yep.
and I was like, okay, that's really has my interest now, and then Ayumi sent me down the Ultima rabbit hole, and I was like, okay, I see themes here that are still interesting. I'm going to give Dawn another. I'm going to give 14 another chance, so to speak. And thank goodness I did, because if I hadn't played Dawn Trail, I hadn't realized that all the threats that we believed abandoned for Endwalker are coming, all of them, back from Shadowbringers.
Yeah.
But because Dawn Trail is going hard back on Shadowbringers. That's why all of these themes right now, that you remember all of those videos that we made that seem to have been debunked. Well, I don't think they've been debunked. It's just that we will have to revisit them.
Yeah, some of the details were different, but the overall themes are still intact.
Yes, and that makes me, and that's when we finished Dawn Trail and we were discussing back in July, I recall, and I told this to Ayumi and Arden. I think it was like, have we been speculating 2 expansions ahead when we were speculating in the Shadowbringer and in Shadowbringers, and it seems to be the case. So all of these themes, and in this case, Death of the Warrior of Light, seems to be a theme, and this thing, which is the metanoia as the Jungian concept of the death of the self and the embracing one's shadow. Not just first, it doesn't just it's not just, it's, we're talking shadow. We're going to connect that word to the darkness. So that's another reason that we came this first arc about fighting for the light. If we're embracing the shadow, are we going to be fighting for the darkness? So thematically speaking, it connects. But then again, right now, I don't know if you guys realize that by the end of Dawn Trail, we were no longer referred to as warrior of whatever. We were warrior of light, then we were warrior of light and darkness, then we were warrior of Aetheris. But now, after Dawn Trail, there's no warrior of anything. We're the seeker of the unknown. Yeah.
And it's I'm also coming from the boat of I loved Endwalker and I thought it was brilliant, and like I got everything that I was expecting out of it. But that is also one of those things where like a story has to end before you can start a new one. It is the end of the first arc, and that doesn't like mean a whole new story is starting. It means that it has to happen before a new story can begin.
Yeah.
So we're talking about like a thematic death of the self here, right? You are an adventurer again. It is a reset as far as scale goes, but it's also scale of story, which is why Dawn Trail works so well.
Yeah,
and I think that works out really, really well for Sage as well.
Yeah, I liked, and I will say this, I liked Dawn Trail overall. I tend to agree with Meowth on some parts about Endwalker, but I think it was less the fault of Endwalker itself and more of not everyone's going to be happy, and they're not going to be able to follow up on every single thread because
And
you're right. It's the end of one story, but it's not the end of everything.
and it's also one of those things where like art is by definition subjective.
Correct.
Not everyone is going to have the same experience. A lot of people haven't liked Dawn Trail because it's the beginning of a story, and they miss Endwalker because they
Right.
liked having that excitement, which is fine. My beef with Endwalker was the patch content.
Yeah, that was. Oof.
Versus, like, Dawn Trail's patch content has been banger after banger.
Mhm.
So,
Well, the one that
Despite what the fan base says, but what the fan base says is.
I mean, point
I'm
one.
just checking.
Point one is always muted, and look at everything we've gotten from it. So I would say we're in for a wild ride for the patch content.
Oh yes,
But,
yes. The fan base doesn't know the nuke that's coming their way.
Nah, I have no idea. But I would say, please look forward to it because I think the patch content is going to be great. But I think about them in the writers' room developing the story and saying, okay, we're going to go with this theme. We're going to do this, and this. And it's entirely possible that, by doing that, they have certain themes in mind when they're constructing the story. It also creates a very, very linear path that can easily be followed that reaches other conclusions as well. And that when we say, oh, they never followed up on this, it's possible they might not have even considered that when they were developing it. And once they put it together and put it out, then they're like, oh, this is a thing too. Maybe we'll follow up that later. That doesn't mean it's not going to happen. It just means that in the development of this particular story, that's not what they're going for. But that doesn't mean that it's not possible.
Right. And that's also something to keep in mind going into Dawn Trail. Yoshi P said that he has the next 10 years of where he wants the story to go kind of generally lined up. We don't know how many expansions that is. We don't know what exactly that entails. We don't know if it's like beat for beat story points, but they have a heading already for at least another decade of this kind of story. So
he mentioned before Dawn Trail that they planned this story arc to be 3 expansions. Doesn't mean that sure they also mentioned 10.0 being planned, but that doesn't mean that it's part of the story arc per se. So when reading Yoshi P's statements, you have to be very careful with the wording,
Right, and that's exactly my point. We don't know that this is a 3 expansion arc because they don't know, because all they have is an idea of where the story is going.
Yeah, they could very easily say, oh, let's put another expansion in, and it could be 4 or 5 expansions.
Yeah, could be.
Right, and then like I also objectively it is incorrect that Dawn Trail is a long expansion. It's the second shortest. It astounds me I still see that, but it is one of those things where like doing things by expansion also doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense sometimes because expansions vary in length quite drastically.
Yeah.
Endwalker was like 36 hours straight versus Heaven's Ward, including patch content, was less than. It just we have a roadmap. I am aware of time, though. Do we want to bring it to the last stage item?
So let's go ahead and go over Asclepion.
Yeah.
Yes, because that's a really interesting one. The Asclepion gear is the gear of the sage, and this requires a bit of context. Asclepius, or Asclepius, if you go for Latin, is a hero and god of medicine in ancient Greek religion and mythology. He is the son of Apollo and Coronis, or Arsinoe, or of Apollo alone. And the rod of Asclepius, a snake entwined staff similar to the Caduceus, is not the same. The rod of Asclepius only has 1 snake. The Caduceus, which is Hermes, has 2.
Yeah,
so it's not the same.
Don't go to a hospital that uses the Caduceus, because the Caduceus represents commerce, trade, and business, and they're there to get money out of you. You go to a hospital with the Asclepius.
Please get healthcare where needed. This is not an official endorsement of LoreLines not to take care of yourself.
No, absolutely.
Legal disclosure.
So, the rod of Asclepius, a snake entwined and staff similar to Caduceus, remains a symbol of medicine today. There's another variant. It's not in here in the paragraph. The variant for pharmacy and health in general terms is the snake of the rod of Asclepius with a cup or a chalice which is the ball of Aegea, the goddess of cleanness and healthiness. So if we go by that, it's a snake around a cup, which is basically, you surely understand where I'm going to, where I'm referring to. So Asclepius once started bringing back to life the dead because he was a really great healer. Basically, it goes that he was a phenomenal doctor and healer, and eventually he got to the point in which he started bringing back to life the dead through his art. However, Hades accused Asclepius of stealing his subjects and complained to his brother Zeus about it. According to others, Zeus was afraid that Asclepius would teach the art of resurrection to other humans as well. Concerning the fate of Asclepius, Ovid writes that the youth, Asclepius, blasted by ancestral bolts of Zeus, soars from earth, rising as the constellation of Fucus, and flings his hand coiled with double snakes. This is the origin of the constellation that represents Zodiac.
It's Ophiuchus is also the constellation that inspires Elidibus's convocation stone.
Yep.
I have it tattooed on my wrist. I'm looking at it right now.
Ooh, that's great. So the story basically goes that Asclepius starts resurrecting the dead, and Hades is like, I had no problem with you as long as you were healing people, but this is taking it a bit. This is taking a step a bit too far away. And he goes to Zeus and he's like, "Can you do something about this guy?" And Zeus, being Zeus, the solution he has about solving the problem is blasting Asclepius with a bolt of lightning. So.
I need a version of the I'm a healer but cocking a gun and there's just like lightning coming in from behind him.
Love that meme.
This is the most Sage thing ever, specifically because Sage involves like doing damage to heal damage and healing in order to do more damage. It is a feedback loop of health bars. That is tough to navigate and will punish you gravely for any mistakes.
Oh yeah.
It works very, very well as far as just connecting to the job's actual gameplay.
Sounds like stories I've heard about getting a degree in medicine. Make a mistake and you're screwed.
Yeah, I mean, as well you should. Not that it helps. Yay, American healthcare. What's more? But no, it fits with the job very, very well.
But yeah, most important part here, I mean, aside from the Greek myth, it's Fucus. So yeah, it's her favorite snake dark deity. So yeah.
Good deal. Well, that is time for today. But I want to say thank you for everybody joining us. Thank you both for being here today and talking about the artifact lore and etymology of 14. There's a lot of really deep stuff if you want to keep digging. But yeah, please look forward to those new Between the Lines videos that we'll be putting together soon.
Soonish, yeah.
Yep, soonish.
We have to get working on that.
Yes, and that said, we are still examining new time slots since our time slot will be changing. So we don't know exactly when it's going to be, but it will be at another time. But we'll let everybody know. All right. With that said, I hope everybody has a wonderful week, and thank you again for joining us.
Bye, friends.
See ya.